Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of the Inside Voice podcast. I got my denim on today, my jean jacket, feeling very 90s, little nod to James Van Der Beek. Well, depending on when you're listening to this, we just lost him last week after a battle with cancer. And, you know, it's tough when you lose what feels like a part of your childhood. And I know that we knew he was sick, you know, battling cancer, but I think so many people were shocked by this because we all thought that he was doing better. We all thought that like he was taking a turn for the better, and it's just heartbreaking. And I don't want to make light of anything or make it morbid or anything like that, or even try to be cliche in this moment, but it's just another reminder that like we don't have forever here, you know, like we got to get serious, we got to get to work. And we got to get focused on what we're doing. You know, we're chasing after things this year. We're dreaming big. We're moving forward. We're looking at things differently and pursuing things and living life, you know, and that should be every single day. But let's be honest, it's not easy. And these days there's so many distractions. There's so many things pulling at us. These days, even when you're online, it's hard to even know what's real out there, and that's problematic. But I want to know, when is the last time you really focused on something, like deeply focused? Like I think back to college and being at the library and studying for finals or writing a paper. I took film classes, so sometimes I was editing a project, like a video project, and that's timely, not anymore, but back in the day, you know, when we were basically having to hand draw all of the clips. It took a while, but you know, I don't know if I've really deeply focused that much since then. You know, if I can just be completely real with you, you might be thinking, well, I focus at my job. My job is I work in entertainment. I work in broadcast. Like I'm on social media all the time. It's just a part of my job. But I think of others, you know, how often are you focused on your job and then you're picking up your phone, or focused on your job, but like the TV is on in the background because you're working from home. You know, we're just not super dialed in anymore. And I think even just the habit that social media and streaming services have kind of developed in us has kept us from staying focused. I think about streaming services and like you can be watching a show and then you're on to another show, or you're skipping through things because you're like, this is boring, I don't like this, I'm moving on to the next thing. We used to have to watch TV in real time, you know? Or social media, you know, you're scrolling through and you're on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Gosh, I'm going to age myself here, but I remember when Instagram launched. I remember signing up for a profile and following people. And I remember the days, Gen Z is not going to believe this TikTok generation is not going to believe this, but I remember when you would scroll through Instagram, you would get to the end of Instagram and it would literally tell you, you're all caught up. It was like they were like, hey, get what you need and go on, go live your life. Now it's like, you will live your life here on this platform. But, you know, like we see things at different times. We don't know like if this happened first or that happened first, or if the post that we're looking at from our cousin is from today or 3 weeks ago. Like it's confusing. It is hard to stay focused and dialed in. Unfortunately, if we're going to do something with our lives, if we are going to push toward a goal, if we're going to dream big and actually make it happen, guess what we're going to have to do? Focus, okay? I need you focused on what you're doing. And I actually looked up the definition of focus. The first definition that I saw pretty much takes the cake. You know, they always put the best one first. The center of interest or activity. Basically means put your goal at the center. You got to make it a priority to you. You know, if you're looking at your day or if you're looking at your life as a dartboard or an archery target, there's a center, there's a bullseye. It's where you get the most points when you're throwing darts. It's where you get the most points in archery. That's where you want to hit, you know, if you're out shooting, like get into the bullseye. Like that is the main thing. And that's where your goal has to be, right? And you got to make it your target every single day. We talk about your day being a target. Your day being that dartboard. You want what you're working on and what you're prioritizing to be that bullseye. Now, granted, there's things that need to be your bullseye, that need to be your priority, you know, like your family, your health, maybe it's your job. But like when you're pursuing something new, you got to carve out time for that as well. You got to figure out how to make this new thing that you're pushing toward, these new habits that you're trying to implement. You got to figure out how to make them also a target that you are hitting every single day. And in order to hit that target, in order to hit that bullseye, you got to be focused on it. You got to be looking at it. You got to be paying attention to it. You can't be looking over here, looking over there, behind you, and like hope to hit this target over here. No, you got to be dialed in. It's Olympic season, and I think about all these athletes. They have been dialed in for years on this goal of making it to the Olympics and getting on a podium and winning gold. Like that is their target. Do you think that there have been many times that they've been distracted? Sure, it's probably happened a time or two. But man, they have like made this whole goal of being an Olympian, being a gold medalist, their entire identity. Like they are so laser focused on it. And I feel like our baseline is pretty low, at least mine is, this, I get distracted easily. I get on social media. Gosh, I was just watching a movie. See, not focused. Tangent. But I was watching a movie last night, and somewhere along the movie, I picked up my phone and started scrolling social media. And I kid you not, like 20 minutes went by before I remembered I'm watching a movie and I don't even know where I'm at in it. I had to put my phone in the other room because I was excited to watch the movie, but for whatever reason, it wasn't a matter of, what's happening in the movie? It's like, what else is happening in the world while I'm watching this movie? Because I got to make sure I know both. If you're trying to focus on two different things, guess what? You're not going to focus well on either one of them. So get laser focused on whatever it is that you are trying to pursue. And, we have these big goals that we're trying to reach, right? Let's say that big goal is gold medal on a podium for the Olympics, That's a huge goal, laser focused on it. But every single day, you can also set a goal for yourself to achieve that ultimate goal. And you got to be just as focused on those small daily goals as you are on the big one in order to achieve that ultimate big goal. Does that make sense? Like every single day, you got to dial in with these little targets in order to hit the bigger target down the road, okay? Again, this doesn't mean you're neglecting everything else in your life that also has stake and value, but it does mean that when it comes to these big goals that you've set for yourself in 2026, you're going to have to pursue them. And you're going to have to be hitting those targets every single day. Another definition of focus is the state or quality of having or producing clear visual definition. When we started the year, we took these grand ideas that we have for our lives and we pared them down, funneled them down into 3 main goals that we're chasing this year. And we got very specific on those goals. So what you're going to have to do, we've got the big goal in mind and we've drawn up a picture of what it looks like. But when it comes to those daily things, we've got to get really clear on what exactly we're going to be doing each and every day to achieve the big goal. Does that make sense? Like every single day, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Where are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? Like these are questions that you have to ask yourself. Again, if it's important to you, you will find time for it. You will find a way to do it, like a how, and you'll really start to work out the nitty gritty of what it's going to take to accomplish that goal every single day. Again, if it's important to you, you will make it happen. One of the new goals that I set for myself in 2026 that I've shared with you, I want to read the entire Bible. Never done it. And I've never done it because in the past, I've kind of just, what's the past tense of winging it? I wung it. I was wunging it. I didn't have a plan. It was just, I'll just get up and read. Really? What are you going to read? How much are you going to read? When are you going to read it? Where are you going to read it? Do you have a visual of what that's going to look like? And it sounds silly to think about the when and the where and the how and everything. But if you can get clear on that, you're more likely to execute it. So for me, I got the materials. I got a 1-year Bible and it's so simple. Oh my God, I can't even believe that I didn't do this before. I mean, I basically have this manual, this 1-year Bible that says, hi, welcome to February 14th. Here's what you're going to read today. And I read it. But it wasn't just, okay, I've got to make sure that I read that at some point on this Tuesday. No, I had to figure out when in my day it was going to work for me, you know? So for me, I'm very particular about my morning routine, and I knew I could squeeze in 20 minutes of reading whatever the daily reading plan was for me. So again, I made it my target for the day. This is the goal that I'm trying to achieve. Here's my target. I'm going to read this passage out of this 1 year Bible. It's telling me exactly what to read, and I'm finding the time that it's going to work. And I even thought about where I'm going to read it. So for me, waking up in the morning and grabbing it and reading it right there, I'm probably going to fall asleep again. I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do after feeding my dog is I come into my office. And that's usually when I sit down and I go through news stories and I start to craft my show and like do some prep and stuff while I have a cup of coffee or my pre-workout. And then I go work out. And so it made the most sense, like, oh, when you sit down at your computer, you're already a little bit awake. You know, you've let your dog out and you've gotten some water in you. Now you're sitting down. Before you even start to prep for your shows, we're going to read that passage in the Bible. Again, the book tells us what to read. This 1 year Bible is telling me exactly what to read. I just had to figure out when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, and how it was going to happen. And knock on wood, I have not missed a day. That is not me bragging. That is just me telling you, if you can get laser focused on it and figure out how to make it happen every single day, you will make it happen. Now, granted, if it didn't work for me, that morning routine, I would have had to adjust and figure out another time that would make it easier for me to focus on that task so I could hit that target. All right. Another definition of focus as we get into the verbs and look a little more into what does this look like? What does focus look like in motion? Well, it looks like paying attention to what you're doing. I know this sounds so simple, but keep your eye on the prize. Again, you've got the big goal that you're pushing toward, but we're trying to implement little things every single day that move us forward and get us to that ultimate goal. You're gonna have to pay attention to those things. You're gonna have to pay attention to when it works best for you to fit it in and how it works best for you to execute that goal. Like, let's say you wanna work out 6 days a week, you know, or 5 days a week. You got to figure out what days that's going to be. What is it going to look like? Are you going to the gym? Are you staying home? Are you doing these classes? Are you going with a friend? You know, you've got to figure out the details, and then you have to pay attention and show up for those things. It's not even just a matter of like, okay, you know, me with this 1 year Bible plan, I can show up and I can skim those pages and move on. No, I got to be present. Because I told myself I'm going to read the Bible this year. I'm not just going to like pass through it. No, I want to like actually pay attention to what I'm reading. And you're going to have to pay attention not just to how you're going to execute your daily task, but pay attention to the daily task itself. Are you accomplishing what you need to each and every day? If not, how do we adjust and make it easier for you? You know, honor your goal by making time for it and then be present in the time that you've made for it. Be this may be something where like you have to put your phone away. I talked about watching a movie and I couldn't even focus on it, so I had to put my phone in another room. Maybe you want to start a business and your tasks each day involve, you know, something along the lines of networking or making a business plan or designing a product or whatever. In those moments that you set aside for yourself, no matter how short or long they may be, you're going to have to stay focused in those moments. You're going to have to pay attention to what you're doing in order to make progress. Otherwise, you're going to waste your time and not move forward. And you're going to come back the next day and you're going to have to redo everything that you did the day before or do what you didn't do the day before. And then it just becomes daunting and it's overwhelming and it feels like you're not gaining any ground and you're probably going to give up. Like, can we just be honest here? Set some boundaries for yourself. You're going to have to do that. It sounds silly, you know, to be like, I'm an adult. I can have my phone sit next to me. I won't be on my phone. Let me know how that works out for you. I don't even have my phone in the room right now because that's how much I want to focus on this goal of recording this podcast. See, you've got to, you know, be your own coach. And if it's tough for you, like find somebody else to help you along the way, you know, but like do something that helps you pay attention to what you're trying to accomplish every single day. Be in it, be present, eliminate the distractions. Maybe you don't need to be, you know, at home to even do this. Maybe you need to be somewhere else, or maybe you need to not listen to music when you're trying to accomplish a goal because you really want to hone in and focus on it. Another way that focus takes motion, what focus and motion looks like is constantly readjusting, constantly, you know, um, making adjustments to make progress. We talked a little bit about this last week, but ultimately, when you get going on a goal, you kind of start to pick up on things that are working and not working. You kind of start to pick up on what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you. Because sometimes we set goals for ourselves or we set daily tasks for ourselves and they're not aligned with us. Like they're probably just not going to happen. And as you start moving forward in your goal and you stay in it and you stay present and you're focused, the goal starts to it starts to become more clear. You get more focus in the goal. It comes into focus. Like think of a camera or like binoculars. Like you've got to make adjustments on the camera lens or, on the eye lenses of the binoculars. Like you make those adjustments to take the object that you're looking at and put it into focus. So as you start moving in your goal, that goal that you're trying to accomplish will start to come into focus better. And even your daily tasks are going to start to come into focus. Again, my Bible reading plan, if that didn't work for me, if I reevaluated at the end of the week and was like, I didn't read anything, why didn't this work for me? You see how I'm getting better focus on what it's going to take for me to actually do that daily task, to actually read something in the Bible every single day. You've got to be constantly adjusting. You got to constantly be moving things and be like, okay, that works, that doesn't work. And you might get to a point where like, this is perfect. I don't need to do anything else here. I'm focused. I got a clear vision. And now I'm moving towards that vision. But keep in mind, just like if you were holding up a camera and like an old school like photography camera, and you start moving toward a subject, like maybe you've got a lighthouse on the beach, right? And you've got it on focus or in focus when you're like 50 yards away. But let's say you start moving toward that lighthouse. You're getting closer and closer. Maybe you're 45 yards now, 40 yards, 35 yards now. It's not going to have the same focus to it. So you're going to have to readjust, Your perspective has changed. Your distance from the goal has changed. And so you're going to have to readjust. But the good thing is, it should come more into focus for you. You may not have the best lens looking at it to begin with, but as you get closer and you make progress, suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I got the perfect lens for this. I can see perfectly where I'm headed. So adjusting is another way that you can stay focused on your target. I think about these athletes in the Olympics. What they were doing day one in their training was not the same thing that they were doing day 382, because they grew, they progressed, they became better at the things that they were doing. They took on different challenges. They got stronger. The vision became clearer of exactly what they needed to do to execute their sport properly, And then like they get to where the Olympics, Milan, they get to Milan and it's like, oh, now it's coming even more into view. It's becoming, I visualized this for myself since I was a child, but now that I'm here, it's like, oh, the vision is becoming clearer. It's really starting to focus a lot more for me now as I'm getting closer and closer and closer to it. Does that make sense? The more progress that you make, the more that you are in your goal, paying attention to it, making it the center, making it your bullseye each and every day, the more clear it becomes. And that's when it starts to get really, really exciting. Now, also, I do want to point out, as the vision becomes clearer, you might see that you started off your goal in this sense, but what you really wanted was actually this. But it took you moving and working and progressing to understand exactly what you were going for. When I started this podcast, I had an idea in my mind of what I wanted. The further that I've gone in it over the years, and even in the last 6 months or 8 months, however long it's been, we launched this, we brought it back June of last year. In that time, what I want to accomplish with this, or what the goal is for this, what the purpose is for this, has become more clear. The mission statement has become more clear. This is why it's so incredibly important for you to just get started on a goal. Get in there, move around a little bit, get your feet wet, figure out what it feels like get into it, because then the vision becomes more clear. If you wait until it's perfect before you start, you will never start. And if you do, the moment it doesn't work, you're out. You're going to bounce. Okay. Get in it, make the adjustments, continue to stay focused on it, and don't give up. Focusing is very, very difficult. I love it's not a definition, but it's what I take from that passage in scripture. Focus your eyes, fix your eyes on things above. That's what it is. Fix your eyes on things above. I think about fixing your eyes. It goes back to like the binoculars, like when you're looking at something, this probably looks really silly on camera, but like I'm making the like I'm looking through binoculars for those that are listening. So my fingers are around my eyes. But when you're looking through that, you are fixing your eyes on what you're looking at. I don't know when the last time is that you looked through a viewfinder of a camera or a telescope or a microscope or even just binoculars. Like when you look through those, you are laser focused on what you're looking at. Like the peripherals really aren't there. All you're really focused on, all you can really see is what you are dialed in on with those binoculars. And if you're focused in on one thing in particular, that's really all that you can see. Like you are dialed in on it. And that's what I think of when I think of fixing our eyes on something. I think it's just so beautiful the way that scripture writes that, the way that God tells us to stay focused on something. So what are you fixing your eyes on? Whatever you're fixing your eyes on, like you're naturally going to find it. You're naturally going to be moving towards it. There's the new car theory, right? My cousin just got a new car within the last year. And this is a car that like I knew nothing about. Didn't even really know like what it looked like until I saw it. And now I feel like I see that car everywhere. Or maybe you, like when the last time you got a new car or got a certain color, and now it's like you see that everywhere. There's probably like a scientific name for it. I should have looked it up, but you naturally look for what you're focused on. There's that clip that I've told you about with Tony Robbins on Theo Vaughn's podcast, telling him to look around the room for things that are red. So Theo's looking and he's like, all right, you got some things that are red. He's like, you bet I do. He goes, okay, how many things did you see that were brown? And Theo looks at him. He's like, I didn't see anything. Yeah, because you weren't looking for it. You weren't focused on finding things that were brown. You were focused on finding things that were red. So naturally, you found more things that were red. So what are you focusing on? Again, if you can focus on the things that you're chasing, it's like it's going to help you in the long run. You're going to see more opportunities. You're going to see more possibilities for yourself because you're focused on it. You're in it. You're dreaming as you're moving through that goal, through that pursuit of that goal. And again, things are just going to come more into focus and become more clear. So where do you start with this? You can start with setting daily tasks for yourself. You can start with doing a checklist of all the things that you want to do each day to push you towards your goal. That's all fine and dandy. I would start with your mind. There's that passage in scripture that says that we will be transformed by the renewing of our minds. And I think whether you're a believer or not, that is so true. Our minds are powerful. Our minds, if we just apply them to what we're after, they will figure out a way to make it happen. Our brains are just this incredible, powerful muscle. And like it's constantly adapting and learning and changing. And like, if we start applying it to what we're chasing after, if we start really thinking about what we're thinking about, we could start accomplishing some really incredible things. The mind really is so powerful. And I think about life in general, our brains, a lot of life is not necessarily what we experience. It's how we perceive it. It's how we process it. It's how we choose to react to it. It's how we move through it mentally. Because let's face it, like life is going to life. Life is going to throw things at you that are going to knock you off the horse. Losing my mom in 2021 knocked me off the horse. It took me a while to dust myself off and pick myself up and get back on the horse. I'll be honest with you. I think now going back, I don't even want to say that because I don't know. Grief hits you, and it's hard. But I can choose now, today, as I've gone through the grieving process, as I've gone through healing, as I've gone through therapy, I can choose what to focus on moving forward. I can focus on the negative side of it, the anger, the bitterness, the resentment, the sadness of losing her and losing her the way that I did. Or I can say, you know what, that is something really hard that happened in my life. It makes me more sympathetic to other people. It makes me want to love people better. And I can start to focus on the good things, the positive things that I can take from that experience and move forward with. I can take the strength that I have found, the hope that I have found in going through something so hard, and apply it to my everyday life. I really want to encourage you to think about what you're thinking about, to analyze what you're thinking about, to focus on what you're thinking about each and every day. If you can start thinking better, your life is going to be better. It will absolutely transform you, like it says in the Bible. And that's what we're doing. We're transforming, we're moving, we're growing, we're pursuing and progressing on this journey called life. And, you know, we got to be really cognizant of the things that we let into our brain that starts to take root. Let the good things in, hold on to those things, nurture and nourish the good things, the positive outlook, the encouragement, the motivation. Focus on that. Your brain becomes like the helm of your life, which is the ship. You think of a helm on a ship, like it's a little wheel compared to the rest of the ship. It's a little wheel, right? But man, it moves that ship, right? Your brain is the same way. So you can't always control what happens to you in life, but you can definitely control how you process it. It may take going to therapy, it may take journaling, it may take meditation, it may take prayer, it may take a lot of things, but transforming your mind is really going to transform the way that you show up for everything else in your life. And it's going to transform the way that you focus on other things. So yeah, think about what you're thinking about, and I think you'll see your focus start to change. And again, if we're not focused on what we're pursuing, it's going to fall to the wayside. You got to prioritize it. You got to make it matter to you. That feels like a theme the last couple of weeks. It's got to matter to you. So what are you focusing on? That's the question that I want you to think about this week as you start, changing habits and setting daily tasks for yourself. What are you focusing on? And again, we talk about being present in the tasks. Let's say your goal is to work out more, and so you're working out. What are you thinking about when you're working out? If it's awful things like I'm sluggish, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm never going to be able to lift this weight, I'm never going to be able to run a mile, I'm never blah, 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 blah. If you're filling that time and filling your mind with that junk, oh, you bet it's going to show up, okay? So don't let that stuff fester. Again, what are you focusing on each and every day to move you towards your goal? But also, what are you focusing on while you're accomplishing those things every single day? Make it positive, make it encouraging, make it meaningful, make it something that is going to push you forward. We talked last week about being your own coach. What would your coach say to you? What would your best friend say to you? What would your sibling who didn't pick on you as a kid, what would they say to you in those moments? Transform your mind and stay focused on the task at hand. Make it a good week for yourself and stay focused.